For today's team preview, we'll discuss the Hawthorn Football Club. So Hawthorn this year, new coach Sam Mitchell. Whenever there's a new coach at a club, it can raise some questions over a few players. We saw over the trade period, sounded like he was pretty keen to get rid of O'Meara, Mitchell, just whoever their top players, aging top players, just get a draft pick for them. So clearly he sees them as a rebuilding side. So I don't know if that affects a few picks or not. We'll just try and discuss that during the video. But how will Hawthorn go in 2022? As I said, rebuilding list, probably bottom 6 again. So I do like a lot of their defenders, a lot of above average defenders. Midfield a few issues, but seems to be a bit one pace. But they do have some good kids that they can put through there. And then in the forward line, lots of developing key forwards. A few decent young smalls as well coming through. So but age bracket for the age demographics a bit all over the place, I think, but nonetheless, I expect them to blood some kids this year, and yeah, probably bottom 6. So we'll start off in defence, and I have 3 names here: Hardwick, Sicily, and Scrimshaw. With Hardwick, his kickouts did drop off in the second half of the year, but did average the 91 for the year in 20 games. So with Sicily coming in, who we'll discuss in a second, does he lose even more kickouts? So doesn't seem like a capable option, but doesn't seem like a safe option for a top 6 to 8 defender. So probably a no-go for Hardwick, but is worth noting that he scored pretty well last year. Now James Sicily, off an ACL about 18 months ago. I think he did it in about August 2019. It would have been 2020 rather. 2020 rather. So yeah, he's averaged 105 in the past, also averaged 92 and then 102 in the year he got injured. So when he was averaging the 102 in 2020, probably worth noting that he was thrown forward for the last 2 games before he did his ACL. So he was 105 plus, pushing 110 average that year, which is pretty impressive. But the year before, 92. If people remember, in the 2020 preseason, there was a lot of talk with Sicily. He had to play accountable a lot more often in 2019. 2020, he was freed up a bit, and we saw that uptick in scoring. Now, with Sam Mitchell coming in, he said that he wants to thinks his best position is defence. However, I'm sure if you've considered Sicily, you're thinking, well, they have all these rebounding defenders, they have a lot of players that can play that half-back role, or even intercept as well. We've seen Scrimshaw and CJ come through, so there's a whole lot of names here. I don't understand how the balance works, and the durability of Sicily isn't the best as well. So at 440k, I can see the pick working, but I don't see him reaching those. I think he could reach 105 plus, but I think it's unlikely, put it that way, just because of the amount of players they have back there. Need to figure out the balance. So keep an eye on how many kickouts he gets over the preseason, whether he has to play an accountable role more often, because there's so many other players that can play the intercepting role. Probably one more thing on Sicily is there is some upside. There was an interview with him in 2021, towards the end of the year, where he was saying in the past seasons he wouldn't train as hard as he probably was in the 2021 and 2022 preseason. So this preseason, for example. Just because he said he got by on talent, but now he's been out the game, he realises career flashes before your eye. He's working harder at training, so work ethic has gone up, it seems. So that does fascinate me with Sicily. So yeah, I don't know. Given the thing that bothers me the most is how he fits in with all the other defenders, because I still think Sicily's the number 1 guy back there. But does he have to play more accountable? Is he going to play loose more often, which is what he did when he scored really well in 2018 and 2020. I'm not sure. So for me, he's a pass. I can understand why you want to pick it, but get a real gist of his kickouts and his role in the preseason. Don't expect him to be thrown up forward, but we say that every year. You never know. If they get injuries, he might have to go mid-game, something like that. So also I have Jack Scrimshaw written here. Did play the 20 games, but is injury prone, and I'm not sure Sicily helps his scoring. So probably a no-go for me, but is a capable scorer. We'll move on to the midfield, and I have just one name here, Tom Mitchell. So 128 post-bye in 2022. So basically with Tom Mitchell, 2018 Brownlow, 2019 broken leg, 2020 coming back from the broken leg, 2021 shoulder surgery in the preseason, doubtful for round one. Was pretty disappointing in the first half of the year in terms of what he's capable of. And then in the second half of 2022, we saw, if you want to say his first half of the year was his preseason because he missed so much training in the actual preseason. That was prime, maybe not prime, but that was the Titch that we expected. The huge accumulation, more consistency, higher floor, higher ceiling. So 25 brownlows for a year as well. So if he actually had a full preseason, I think he has every chance of playing well in the first half of the year and challenging, maybe not winning, but getting close to Ollie Wines' Brownlow. So now the issue potentially with Mitchell is how Sam Mitchell uses him. And I'm thinking, okay, there's a new coach. He wanted to get rid of Tom Mitchell. He wants to play young midfielders, but what are you supposed to do with Tom Mitchell? Maybe cut his mid-time a little bit, make him start at half forward a bit more. What are you supposed to do with him? Because they have O'Meara as well. Probably going to give those two a lot of minutes. So Warple, what's going on? But yeah, we'll list the other names in the midfield when we talk about the rookies. But Titch is still their best player. So for me, I think I see 125 average for Tom Mitchell. Just because he's Tom Mitchell and he's going to get a full preseason, something he hasn't had for a few years now. Is 28 turning 29, which is around the age where players, specifically midfielders, decline. So because he's played a bit less footy, had a year off, wasn't played enough midfield in his early in his career at the Swans. So sort of I guess you could say, slightly a late start to his midfield career, if that makes sense. But nonetheless, I can understand if you don't want to pick Tom Mitchell because we have bulletproof options, maybe a little bit more expensive. Walsh is at the same price too. I think he's a solid pick as well. So yeah, Mitchell is he's been in my team all preseason, but I just figure you get a bit of FOMO missing out on the other mids and trying to figure out the balance for the team. So Tom Mitchell, I have him as a top. I think he'll finish in the top 6 midfielders for this year. So perfectly good starting pick. Just a few slight doubts with the Sam Mitchell factor, but just don't know how else you're supposed to use him. So yeah, that's that. So that's enough on Mitchell. Moving on to the Rucks. So there's no premium Rucks that are viable here, but we'll speak about Max Lynch anyway, who's a rookie Ruck, 200 odd K. So his VFL average is 91. He was picked 51 in the rookie draft. Didn't even realise people took that many picks in the rookie draft. I suppose there's skips as well, but yeah, the coach said in a preseason article, we see some real promise and potential in his game, in Max Lynch's game. So that's why they recruited him to the club. Been in the system a few years now. They have Ben McAvoy. Does McAvoy play defence or forward? Not really sure. Probably more likely forward, I guess. I don't know. So they also want to put games into Ned Reeves. So can they play McAvoy? Well, I suppose McAvoy's forwards, but not going to matter too much. But do they want to play Reeves and Lynch? I don't know. I think probably Reeves is slightly ahead at this stage. So who knows? It's one to watch over the preseason. Again, with the whole Ruckman, rookie Rucks, very dangerous game. When things go wrong, things go very wrong, and you need to use multiple trades to get out of it. Maybe you need to give up a premium as well, or hopefully some other rookie option pops up out of nowhere. So with Max Lynch, it's watch how the Hawthorn use him in terms of, is he the second ruck? Does he have to spend time forward? Because he's kicked a few goals in the VFL. So not sure on his role, not sure what his ruck priority is, how he's in the pecking order down there. So a little dangerous strategy going with a 200k ruckman. Maybe you want to pair him up with Bruce, who's another story, but nonetheless, we'll keep tabs on Max Lynch. So 91 VFL average is just okay. Generally, if you're in the system, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, probably want to be doing a little bit better than that at VFL level. But keep an eye on him, see how he goes in the preseason. So, but yeah, some ruckmen do develop a bit late, and he hasn't been able to develop at AFL level, being behind Grundy. So Yeah, I'll watch, but want to see what he's capable of in the preseason. Up forward, I have one premium here, Chad Wingard. So he's strictly not a starting pick due to his soft tissue history. Pretty simple. But his CBAs for the entire year were 41%, which is not too bad. And he did have blocks. The last month, his CBAs were raised higher than 41%. Can't remember what it was specifically, but does have patches where it does get a little bit more mid-time. My issue with Wingard is because he's aging and they have to play O'Meara, they have to play Mitchell in the midfield. They want to probably play the kids, some of their draftees and the other players that were at Box Hill last year through the midfield. So do they really want to be giving Wingard mid-minutes? Well, I think they're a better team if he's playing midfield, but I don't think that's... that the goal right now is to play the kids. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, the midfield setup. But with Wingard, look at him. If he's playing a lot of midfield minutes late in the season and he's at a decent price, I think he's an okay target to finish off your midfield. But that's the only scenario where I can see him being worth it. But yeah, there's still a lot of other forwards with a high ceiling. So move on to the mid prices. Will Day is 350k. I don't know if... I assume he plays wing because I'm not sure if there's room for him at halfback, but seems to be able to play both. Is currently on a modified program and just had a lot of injuries. Had a pretty nasty ankle injury, so don't really see it for Will Day, but high talent and one we'll keep an eye on. And the other one I have is Connor Nash. So I did watch a bit of him late last year. His scores were 99, 87, 82, and a 44 against the Bulldogs midfield. Contested rate was pretty good, and he's a pretty tall, big-bodied mid, so he looked okay in the midfield, but there's just a whole heap of other mids where, we see Newcombe was getting time. They want to give time to Ward, maybe McDonald, they're two draftees. There's just a lot. Mid-minutes are quite hard to come by, but I think he's also he's probably been on a program, but he is Irish, so he has been in Ireland over the Christmas break. And I think he's only just got back to Hawthorn, maybe this week or something. So Connor Nash, 310k forward mid, did have that midfield role late in the season. Can he sustain it for a long period of time? Can he hold down the role? I don't know, and I don't know. So for me, he's a pass. If he was maybe 200k, I think it'd be much more interesting. But yeah, he's shown some decent scoring ability. I think Sam Mitchell would have been mentoring him at Box Hill at VFL level. So keep an eye on Connor Nash. But yeah, it's very hard to get mid-minutes at the moment at Hawthorn, I assume. So we'll go over some rookies now. So 200k defender, Denver Granger at Barras. Good interceptor. Played pretty well at Waffle level. Only played the one VFL game. I think he was injured. For 52 fantasy points, and from memory he didn't score very well in the Waffle because he's a key defender, so not all key defenders score well. Generally later in there, as they make their way through the AFL, a few more years, they can develop a bit more of an intercepting game, but which Barras has, but not in high volume for a key defender anyway. So look, I don't see him making a whole lot of money. I think he's a fantastic prospect, AA potential. Used to play on Logan McDonald, touted him up in the Waffle a few years back. So I think he plays if he's fit and he has a good preseason. Just how much money is he going to make? 200k key defender doesn't sound overly appealing with not a whole lot of strong scoring history at state league level. So he's a pass for me. Josh Ward, 180k. Consistent high accumulator in the NAB League. Went head to head with Dacos in one game and pretty much matched him, give or take 2 or 3 disposals. Did have a 7-week concussion issue, which is a little concerning, so fingers crossed he doesn't have issues with that throughout his career, but just something I noticed or read about. But yeah, ready-made midfielder, could play round 1 and very high endurance, so very few weaknesses with Ward. Pretty safe draft pick for Hawthorn, so will be a great player, but 180k competing with all those players we know, Dacos and Horn from that draft year as well, so it will be hard to fit him in, but one where Erasmus as well around that mark, so one I'm definitely keen to watch, but it's very hard to fit him in. They definitely give priority to Dacos, but yeah, keep an eye on Josh Ward. See if they give him a lot of mid minutes. Given, as we spoke about, a lot of other mids vying for the mid spots. Finn McGuinness is a mid forward from the 2019 draft. He was a father-son, 65 average in the VFL. So in his draft year, he was capable of accumulating a lot in those games with a high contested rate. So I got my words muddled up there, but pick 29, father-son. So it seems like he can win a lot of contested ball, which is great. I've seen some highlights of him in the preseason. Looks pretty impressive. Has a lot of great attributes. Can burst from a stoppage. Does he? Given he's a forward mid, I assume he split his time in the VFL forward and mid. So just a lot of mid spots. Is doing that speed project. You might have seen that on Instagram, where I think Jordan Ridley's doing it. A few other players are doing it, where they try and improve a player's top speed, I think, and a few other aspects of the game. So is taking initiative to improve his game outside the club, which is great. But yeah, again, these mid names: Nash, Newcombe, Warple, Titch, O'Meara, Liam Shields as well, I forgot about. So Wingard can go through there. How much mid time does he get? But given he's 150k rookie, probably doesn't need a whole lot. So hearing a lot of good things. It just, is he best 22? I'm not sure yet, but a few promising things. Been in the system 2 years now, so see how he goes. Sam Butler, pick 23, mid forward, I think. So reading his draft profile, it sounds like he has a lot of attributes to be a small forward, but I think he sees himself as a midfielder. So it wouldn't surprise me. He's one where he starts forward, and then later in his career he goes into the midfield. Connor McDonald is I can't find the junior numbers, but he's a high accumulator, fierce tackler, and a very good two-way midfielder. So I think his numbers were might have been higher than Ward's actually, but yeah, something like that. So look, has a good profile. I'm not sure if he's ready-made or not, but he has been impressing at training along with Ward. So I'm not sure if he gets games, and not sure if he gets straight to the midfield, but one where I think sounds like he might be able to get games at some stage this year and score okay for us. And the last one I have here is Jackson Callow, taking the mid-season draft. Strong marking ability and strong work rate. Does have competition from Mitch Lewis, Cozzy, and Jekka. So don't know if he plays or not. Could he switch to key defence? I think it's possible, but I don't know if he's which end he's at the moment. So probably not going to score a whole lot based on price, forward rookie. So yeah, not one I love here. So the main ones from this list, I think Sicily, definitely want to watch him over the preseason. Tom Mitchell, think he'll be fine pick. Not too worried about him. For preseason, expect big things from him. And then in terms of rookies, Ward and Finn McGuinness probably the main two. And fingers crossed, maybe McDonald as well. So that's the Hawthorn video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.